All right, so today we're going to talk about a composer who is basically making blockbuster movie soundtracks, but like over 150 years ago. Seriously.
Okay, so picture this. You're playing a game, right? Or maybe you're in a movie at the most intense part, and the music just explodes. You've got this massive choir, drums are just pounding away, strings are going crazy. It's the kind of music that just screams, final boss battle. You know exactly the feeling I'm talking about.
Well, what if I told you that one of the most epic, intense, world-is-ending pieces of music like that was actually written way, way back in 1874? Yup, it was created by this guy Giuseppe Verdi for a work he called the Requiem. He pretty much invented the epic soundtrack before soundtracks were even a thing.
So how is that even possible? Let's get into it. Verdi was creating Hollywood-level sound long before Hollywood was even a thought. A requiem is usually church music, a mass for the dead. It's supposed to be pretty solemn, but Verdi's version, it is pure drama. He wrote it to honor a famous Italian poet, but it sounds less like a quiet prayer and more like an opera about the end of the world. Especially this one part called the Dies Irae, which means Day of Wrath. It is just pure musical chaos, and it is absolutely awesome.
So who was this guy who basically put an opera inside a church service? Well, let's rewind and check out his origin story. This is Verdi's journey, a classic case of leveling up from a village kid to a total VIP. So Verdi started out in this tiny little village in Italy. He wasn't from a rich family or anything. He learned how to play the organ and sang in the local choir. But people could tell he had some serious talent, so he got a chance to move to the big city, Milan, to study music. Then in 1839, boom, he drops his first hit opera, Oberto, and by the 1840s, he was basically at the top of the charts in Italy. A total glow-up story. Okay, so how did he actually do it? What were his secret weapons, his cheat codes for creating so much drama? Let's open up Verdi's dramatic toolkit. First off, you've got to understand the man was a machine. He composed over 20 operas. That's like a director making over 20 blockbuster movies, and each one is just packed with action and emotion. He really knew how to tell a story with music. He basically had four main tools in his kit. First, melodies that you just can't get out of your head. Second, singers with super powerful voices. Third, huge groups of singers, called a chorus. And fourth, a full orchestra to build that whole world of sound. Let's break that down. He used solo songs, they're called arias, for a character's big emotional moment. Think of it as their dramatic monologue where they let it all out. Then, he'd bring in the chorus, that giant group of singers, to act like the crowd. You could honestly think of them as the live chat or the comments section, just reacting to all the drama going down. It made everything feel so much bigger. And the orchestra? Well, think of it like a graphics card before your ears. He used the string instruments for those emotional close-up moments to really make you feel a character's sadness or their love. But when he needed a huge battle scene or a moment of pure terror, he would just unleash the brass and the percussion. It was all about painting a picture with sound. So with this toolkit, he ended up creating some of the most famous operas of all time. Let's take a look at a few of his hit franchises. Here are just a few of his big ones. If these were movies, they'd be like the Star Wars or Avengers of their day. Names like Rigoletto, La Traviata, and Aida, they were known all across Europe. And why were they so popular? Because the stories are about things we are still obsessed with today. They're all about love, getting revenge, betrayal, and massive conflicts. It's the same exact stuff you see in your favorite shows, movies, and video games right now. He just did it with music. And what's really cool is that he used the same dramatic style for two totally different settings. On the opera stage, it was all about human drama and pure entertainment. But then, in church, he used that same exact energy for spiritual themes. But the technique, it was the same. The goal was always to use powerful voices and an intense orchestra to make the audience feel something big. Okay, so all of this was over 150 years ago. So what? Why are we even talking about it? Let's get to why Verdi still matters today. You can think of Verdi's work as the original blueprint for dramatic music. All those epic scores you hear in movies and games, they're basically direct descendants. They're all using the same playbook that Verdi perfected more than a century ago. So the big takeaway here is really simple. The DNA of Verdi's music is everywhere. When you hear that swell of strings in a sad movie scene or that massive choir in an epic game trailer,
You are hearing the legacy of Giuseppe Verdi. He basically wrote the code for this stuff.
Ultimately, this is what it all comes down to. Verdi's true genius wasn't just about writing loud or fast music. It was his incredible ability to use sound to communicate deep, powerful human emotions. He could make you feel joy, terror, or heartbreak just with an orchestra and a voice. And that leaves us with a final thought. Verdi's music has lasted for over 150 years, and it still feels completely epic. So it makes you wonder, what music from our time, from your playlists, will people still be listening to 150 years from now and thinking, wow, this is a masterpiece? Something to think about.